Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Cole Phillips, author of The Adventure of the Twisted Truths and a host of the Book and Dagger. And today we are going to continue where we left off in the last video. This is going to be part two of Let the Blade Masters Take the Stage. Now, I was really excited for this series of videos because I love sword fights. I love just watching characters who are known for their skill with the blade and weapons just duke it out. It is one of my favorite moments in any book or movie. So we're just going to continue right where we left off. But before we do, I would like to clarify: these are not ranked like in order. Even I myself, I still am not sure what my favorite sword fight of all time is. Just there are so many good ones that ranking them is very hard. So these are just a list of some of the best ones that I've compiled. But if you guys have a favorite sword fight of all time that you would like me to know about and maybe do a video on, please let me know in the comments, and I would love to do a video on that at some point in the future. Picking up where we left off, though, we are going to be going to number 5 on our list, and this is going to be a sword fight from the Wheel of Time. It is Rand al'Thor versus the High Lord Turok. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the Blade of Time or the Wheel of Time, how it works is that in the book series, there are people who are blade masters, and the blade masters are basically the best swordsmen in the whole world, and they're very rare and few individuals. They all carry swords that are marked with a heron on them. And in the second book of the Wheel of Time, The Great Hunt, Rand al'Thor, who is still struggling to come into his still struggling to accept that he is the Dragon Reborn, he is who he is, and that he can wield the one power. He's still trying to hide it because he's journeying with some friends and acquaintances of his, and he's still not sure how they would react to him being a man who can channel the one power. So throughout the second book of Wheel of Time, you see Rand. He subtly uses the one power a couple times. Most of the time, his weapon is the heron-marked blade, the sword that his father gives him in the first book, because apparently Tam al'Thor is a blade master. And like Rand was like, I thought you were a simple shepherd. But no, Tam al'Thor was a blade master. And he gives Rand his sword in the first book. And Rand gets to train a little bit with Lan Mondragoran. And Rand al'Thor versus the High Lord Turok is one of the most iconic Wheel of Time moments, I feel like, in the entire book series. And there are a lot of moments in the Wheel of Time. But what makes this moment so special is that this is one of the few times in the book series that you see Rand fight somebody with a physical weapon, not use the one power and emerge victorious. Because what happens is Rand and Perrin and Mat and some Shinarans, led by Ingtar, are trying to retrieve the Horn of Valier from the Shan-Chan. Spoilers, by the way. This video is going to have spoilers, so you are forewarned. But so they've retrieved the Horn of Valier, and they're in like the Shan-Chan occupied Falma, and they're trying to get out. And the High Lord Turok, who's been this like minor antagonist throughout the book, he walks in with a bunch of Shan-Chan soldiers, and he basically looks at the soldiers and he's like, take them all, but leave this one to me. And he points, he kind of gestures towards Rand, and then the High Lord Turok draws his sword, and you find out for the first time that he's a blade master, because as he draws his sword, Rand sees the herons on it, and he says, "Let us see what is required to earn a heron mark on this side of the Aerith Ocean." And this sets up a really cool fight, because he sees Rand, and he sees Rand's heron marked sword, and he thinks, "Oh, Rand's a blade master." And then Rand's sitting there like, "Uh-oh," because Rand's not a blade master. Rand has had very little training with the sword. He has done very well with it, and Lan Mondragoran has taught him very well, because Lan is an awesome dude and very handy with the sword. But Rand is this is a critical moment for Rand, because he's caught. He doesn't want anybody to know that he can use the one power, so he can't use that. But at the same time, if he just uses the sword, he feels like he might die, because the High Lord Turok is a blade master and Rand is not. However, this really sets up the fight. It's set up so good, because Rand starts to use the sword, and he's still struggling, and he's like, I don't think I can do this. I should use the one power. And High Lord Turok is like testing him, and then starts to press him more aggressively. And then Rand is like, no, I can do the sword because my father taught me this flame in the void trick. And it's something Rand uses throughout the book series. It's this something that his father taught him. And Rand begins to use this trick, the flame in the void, and it like he focuses, and eventually he's able to hold with this trick. He's able to hold his own against the High Lord Turok and just be like, no, I'm not going to use the one power. I'm going to use the sword skills that Lan and my father taught me. It's just a really cool moment for Rand because all throughout the book series, like they've set it up so that Rand, you don't know how good with the sword Rand is. Like Rand is not the best swordsman in the book, but he is very, very good with the sword. But nobody ever realizes it, because he rarely gets the chance to wield it. There's a few times where he uses the one power to get out of a situation when no one's around, and he kind of is like struggling to rely. He's torn between relying on that and relying on the sword. And in this fight, you actually get to see how good of a swordsman Rand is, and that he can actually hold his own against a blade master. And he eventually defeats Turok with the sword and keeps his secret safe for a little while longer. And so that is really the first like major like cool one-on-one duel fight in the Wheel of Time. And with that, we're going to move on to our next sword fight, which is number 6. And this in our series is from Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, and it is the iconic fight when Captain Jack Sparrow sword fights William Turner. This sword fight is very fun, I'm not going to lie. It is very well done. The choreography is amazing. It's got kind of like in Princess Bride. It's got this like light atmosphere. It's playful banter back and forth between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner. The way they use the surroundings in the fight to enhance it and like add to it is really fun. And the just sheer swordplay, the skill and magnificence is awesome. I will say, like, I'm not a big fan of Disney movies. Disney, for me, like, ruined Star Wars. They're ruining Marvel. But credit where credit is due. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies were top tier. And the sword fight between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner is one of the big reasons why they honestly are so good. And with that, we're going to move on to number 7 on our list, which is another sword fight from the Professor Layton games. Now, if you watch my previous video, you know that Professor Layton is a gentleman of archaeology, a polite, not gentleman. He's a gentleman, a professor of archaeology, and he's this really nice, polite guy. But he is also a really cool sword master. And this is a fight from the game Professor Layton in the Diabolical Box, which, if you play the games as they are meant to be played, in the order they were released, not chronologically, but in the order they were released, this is really the first time in the series you ever see Professor Layton whip out a sword and fight. Now, it's just really fun because, like, if you know anything about Professor Layton, you know Professor Layton is kind of this, like, Scooby-Doo mixed with Sherlock Holmes, Indiana Jones kind of feel. It's basically like there's a lot of times where it's like, oh, something supernatural happened, much like in Scooby-Doo where they're like, oh, it's a ghost, and it's like, actually, it's just a guy in a hood, and this is a magic trick, and that's a counterfeiter over there. Professor Layton is kind of along those lines where a lot of time people are like, oh, it's something supernatural, it's a vampire. And Professor Layton pops up at the end and is like, no, actually, it's just this elaborate scheme. And this guy was trying to make money. And so he was using these fraudulent methods and yada, yada, yada. That being said, the Professor Layton games are amazing and very hilarious. And there are some very good plot lines that will really tug at your heartstrings. And like I said, they also have amazing sword fights, which is why we're doing this video. So in the Professor Layton, the Diabolical Box, Professor Layton is investigating this town. And in this town, there's like this big, creepy castle on the outskirts. Everybody's in the town is like, oh, there's a vampire who lives there. He's so scary. Stay away from the castle. Professor Layton's like, nah, I'm going to go investigate this vampire. That's Professor Layton and his assistant. They go to the castle, and they go in, and spoilers, it's not a vampire. It's just a dude who's losing his mind, and he's just living in the castle all by himself, and everybody's like, it's a vampire! And he's not really. But so Professor Layton goes into the castle, and he's investigating, trying to uncover all these mysteries. And he runs into the dude that everybody calls a vampire. And through a bizarre twist of events that I'm not going to spoil for any of you guys who have not played the games, this guy, his name is Anton Herzon. He's the duke of this castle, and he challenges Professor Layton to a sword fight. And this is, like I said, this is the first time in the series you've ever seen Professor Layton sword fight, and it's really cool because in the past, like up till now, all you've ever seen is the gentlemanly side of Professor Layton. You've seen him just be nice, kind, helpful. He solves puzzles. He drinks tea. He looks after all these kids that nobody else is looking after. He's basically just this all-around good guy. And then this duke challenges him to a sword fight. And Professor Layton's like, yeah, bring it on. Professor Layton proceeds to solve a puzzle, take a sword from the wall, and then just go toe-to-toe with this guy who's trained with swords his entire life. It is an amazing scene, and just you're watching, you're just like, dang, Professor Layton is a cool, iconic character. It is really, like I said, one of the peak moment in the franchise where you realize just how awesome of a dude Professor Layton is and why he is the titular character of the video game series. With that being said, we are now going to move on to number 8, I believe. Yes, number 8 in our show, or our series of videos. And this is going to be Battle of the Heroes, which is another Star Wars fight. You know me, I love Star Wars. I love lightsaber fights. And I have, as I said in the last video, I firmly believe that the prequels have the best lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars. Better than the originals, better than the sequels. Hands down, the prequels have the best fights. Battle of the Heroes is, of course, the iconic fight between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin after Anakin has turned to the dark side. It is set up really well. The way that the confrontation between Anakin and Padme, and which Anakin chokes Padme because he believes that she's betrayed him, and then the kind of the contest of words, back and forth between Anakin and Obi-Wan, as Anakin's like, oh, you, the Jedi have betrayed me, and and Obi-Wan's like, no, you just become paranoid and you're listening to Palpatine, which you should not be doing because he's a liar. And Anakin's just like, no, if you're not with me, you're my enemy. And just the way they set up the music that starts to play, the emotional pulling of the heartstrings, it's just very well set up. And then the duel itself is incredible. The fight choreography is very, very fast-paced and action-filled. There's a lot of leaping, a lot of jumping, a lot of just insane sword play. Once again, the surroundings come into play. It takes place on Mustafar, which is a lava planet, so they're trying to dodge pools of lava, and they're on these machines, riding through rivers of lava, jumping away from lava waterfalls, and it's insanely good. And then when it ends, when Obi-Wan defeats Anakin, it really hits you in the feels even more, because the past couple movies, they were setting up Anakin and Obi-Wan are close. They were master and apprentice. They're like brothers. And now Obi-Wan basically has to leave Anakin to die because Anakin's just become this rotten person who it appears to be unsalvageable. But that will conclude part 2 of the series. And be on the lookout for part 3 coming up later this week. And I will catch you guys then.